Powersports was always my happy spot. I don't want to be in the business to sell products just to sell products. I want to be in the business of something I'm passionate about. And anything related to Powersports interested me. For us, it's the guy who wants to save money, fix stuff himself, takes pride in tinkering with stuff, and so it makes my heart happy to be that for gearheads. It's crazy to think what started out as a side hustle in my basement and then moved to my garage became a way to make a full-time living, both for me and my family, and now for the 65 team members that make up PSN. There were plenty of ups and downs along the way, but we now have the privilege to sell parts and rebuild engines that allow people to do work, ride recreationally, and most importantly, make memories. My dad liked horses, I like horsepower, and I can see my kids and grandkids also like horsepower. My dad always wished he had started a business, and I was able to do that. And it looks like my kids and possibly my grandkids will keep it going. It's not just about the passion of Powersports or the love for our team members. We're driven by legacy. My name is Todd Dickie.
My name is Diane Dickie.
Chad Budke.
I'm Ben Sukup.
My name is Shannon Falk.
My name is Cameron Dickie.
I am Liam Dickie, the youngest son of the Dickie family, and I price and manage all of our inventory for PowerSportsNation.
I am the manager of parts and fitment, social media, all sorts of different things.
Marketing and sales.
I am the general manager at PowerSportsNation.
ATV inspector. I inspect all the parts off most all the ATVs that come through.
I ship parts maybe once a week. I like to flitter around and take care of people every now and then and do things for people if I see a need. And I pray a lot.
Growing up in McCook, Nebraska, lived on an acreage, and our best friends across the street had a acreage as well, but they started a Yamaha motorcycle shop. Big Ed's Bike Barn was Ed and Betty Budke.
Started selling Yamahas back in 71, I think it was. Of course, he already had his clientele base, the farmers that he had the corn seed with, and he started selling Yamahas. It was actually right across the street from my uncle that sold Hondas and Kawasaki's. He always said that his brother was his best salesman because he would make him mad, and he'd come over to our shop and take a Yamaha home.
Ed bought an old full-size school bus, and he took half the seats out. They would go racing, so they'd have all these young racers sat in front, and then the bikes were in the back. So when they pulled up to an event, it wasn't just a guy in his trailer, it was Big Ed and all of his people. And Ed, more often than not, paid these guys entry fees.
I remember one time Todd was going down the hill, and he was looking at me, and he flew into the back of this gal's. She had her trunk open, getting her groceries out of the car, and he flew into her, hit the car, flew up and hit her trunk, and fell on top of her groceries. And he gets back up, and we take off before the gal comes back out, and she had smashed groceries all over her trunk of her car. That was pretty funny. But I would always help him with his paper out in McCook, Nebraska.
I used to remember after school, I'd do my paper out, and then I'd go there, and I was such a sponge for anything Powersports that he would be on the sales floor selling stuff, and then if he was too busy or whatever, I'd actually start talking to people because I knew most all of the specs and whatever, because I devoured every magazine. I had all the literature. So, the most exciting thing in the Powersports industry is when they announced new models. And this was in the heydays of like motocross, and where the manufacturers were literally every year or two coming out with new stuff. So I got to experience the joy of riding from the Budkes. And I was really just a consumer or a fan, just that was fun as a kid. my favorite place to be in the world was at their shop and anything related to that. And yeah, that's what really bonded to me to love Powersports. We would ride fairly often, and Ed was always involved, and the Budke family patterned to me how to make Powersports part of your family. I just asked her one day, I said, Betty, could you ever build a motorcycle from new parts? And she was super sweet to me, and she just sat down and said, yeah, you could, but it would cost you about 5 times what you could buy just the new bike. And back then, new motorcycles were $700, which that was crazy money. And I think it was providential or prophetic, because who knew that later on that statement would be the basis of my business. So this is your mom and I's first house. You know, your mom and I were broke. I'm not even sure we could afford a house. And, you know, we bought this house, I think around 1990 for under $80,000, which was for us a lot of money. My career at that time was involved with computers. So I saw this emerging market of eBay and realized in eBay was a way I could do both computers and Powersports. So this whole business started as a side hustle to help pay for my kids' private parochial school.
It started off as little things to earn extra money, you know, because we had our kids in Christian school, and the government doesn't pay you to send your kids to Christian school. Todd would tell you, you know, you speak things out with your words. You know, life and death is in the power of the tongue. And what I did tell Todd, and what I really thought, was that he was the best salesman in the whole wide world. And he really is.
We knew that as a husband and wife, we were in the business together. We have 3 boys. They're now not young, I mean, they're young men or grown men, but I really wanted Diane to be able to be a mom. My grandson Ron is highly enamored with these little bikes. He wants me to get them down all the time, but they're kind of a homage to how I started. I'm watching eBay, people doing stuff, so I gotta start somewhere. So I would go to Walmart and Target and buy these, and then I realized I could do pretty decent. I'd make $2 or $3 per one. It went pretty well, but I could tell it wasn't gonna scale, but I was hooked. So I'm driving by this John Deere dealership, and they had all their mowers and implements on a trailer. Well, on the end of that trailer was a Honda CT70, one of the candy colored ones. I go in and deal with the guy, and he says, well, I think I bought it for $600, and it was pretty nice. And I get it home, and we're riding it around this cul-de-sac, and that has a 3-speed automatic transmission.
This cul-de-sac.
But your mom held it between first and second, and then dropped it, and that's like dropping the clutch. And she wheelied it and hit that mailbox right there and bent the fender. Well, I had put it on eBay, $9.99, no reserve, let it rip. And in the middle of the auction is when it got wrecked. And so we had to fix it, but the auction ended up at $2,100 or $2,200, and I was like instantly hooked, because it's like, all right, we're really making money. I hired my best friend from childhood to start tearing stuff down. I've always kind of been able to see people and say, would you consider this? So, you know, that was like super baby step number 1.
The very first started when I was living with Todd and Diane. We started buying motorcycles, and I would tear them apart, and Todd would put them up on his deep freeze and picture them and sell them on the internet. He brought a Z50 back from Colorado. I think we fixed that one up and sold it, I believe. That was probably the very first one was that Z50. They all kind of blend together after that. They still do.
When I realized I couldn't buy enough nice bikes, I started buying parts bikes.
Stuff everywhere, just And my freezer, which was outside the door, I could at least open the freezer every now and then, but that's where they took pictures of things on my freezer. There might have been an itty bitty little path you could walk through, and I'm sure the neighbors were like, oh my gosh. Anyway, yeah, it was messy.
Ben Sukup was the #1 life-changing hire because he was the mechanical side, get it done. We were creating a brand new market.
Well, I'd focus on the production side of the company currently, but there's probably about no roles that I haven't done as a general manager, essentially help run this operation. Gonna get really real with you guys here. I was on my way to federal prison. I'd gotten arrested for distributing narcotics, and Todd had this thing going. He was trying to get this business going as a salvage operation. He approached me if I'd be interested. I said, sure, I need a job. I can do salvage. Went away for close to 3 years. I came back to work for Todd in April of 2008. The day that I walked out of my 3-quarter house, I came to work the next day here, and I've been here ever since.
We want to get stuff done, but we also want it to be family-oriented and redemptive. There's some stories of some employees that nothing makes me happier than to see somebody functioning and kind of what they were meant to be. Ben was my probably first real teardown, and he was super efficient.
We used to use snowmobiles, jet skis, street bikes, sport bikes, anything in the power sports industry, and that's a lot of models. Even when we began in our focus and do today focus on just the ATV, UTV side, that's plenty big piece of market itself. So there was a big evolution.
Initially, everybody that came on board that worked for us was in some way either a gearhead, rode motorcycles, like Ben raced, dirt track. Everybody had some sort of gearhead agenda, whether it was motorcycles, dirt bikes, whatever, street bikes. I've always been into motorcycles since I was, 17, 18 years old. And the thing that drew me into PSN, it was such a young company. It was only, I think at that point, 7 or 8 people. So, we were riding dirt bikes, and part of that equation was selling parts. And, Todd brought me into the fold and kind of threw me into it wasn't even an interview, it was just brought me into a dealership and said, I'm having problems with these guys. I can't get a, relationship, and sent me in. And about 30 minutes I came out later with some phone numbers. And so he said, okay, I guess you got a job.
I've watched coming from out of town in a rented space to where we grew that too big to where we're popping at the seams there, to Todd and Diane getting the opportunity to buy this property out here in the one building.
I asked him, hey, are you interested in selling this building? And Diane looks at me kind of like,
You and what money? I didn't see it coming. And I didn't know that would happen. So that expanded a lot.
I guess it's just been neat seeing, when I first started working for Todd, Cameron and Ian and Liam were all still in high school, and seeing them go from, young kids to getting into the business and developing and learning, and now being such an integral part of the business. It's a cool thing to see all that responsibility still throughout the family and growing with the company.
So growing up in the business, we did everything. In high school, it just was whatever that day needed. My first real job was on the road. I was on the road picking stuff up, meeting dealers, finding machines. I was putting on about 100,000 miles a year in a pickup, and that was my first real job, which was good because it really grew my salesmanship, because we have to sell ourselves. When we say the word salvage yard, there's a negative connotation to it.
My first job at PowerSportsNation was to sweep the warehouse and take out all the trashes. And you're kind of the glorified shop bitch and just taking care of everyone's stuff. So it was very humbling, but a good experience nonetheless.
it can be a bit surreal. We've been able to hire people who specialize in areas. Before I was the pitcher guy, I was the shipper guy, I was the lister guy, I was the customer service guy. It's a little scary, but I enjoy the pride of seeing our rebuild engines go out and look amazing. Seeing comments where people, thought we've done well for them. I mean, you're never going to make everybody happy, but I always operated with, I wanted to be able to look somebody in the eye and say I did the best we could with what we had.
We are here at the front of our main building. This is where our customer service team lives. At one point in time, we did not even have a phone line. Diane convinced Todd to get us a landline, and now we have 9. Our customer service team on any given day could receive up to 300 incoming phone calls. They're able to help them figure out what year, make, and model of the machine it is, what part they actually need. Here we are in our salvage shop. We got 12 full-time employees. We got 6 individual bays that these guys are tearing down machines. Over this week, they will be producing about 3,000 parts that will be hitting the shelf to our warehouse.
When I first come here, we were tearing down a lot of just four-wheelers, ATVs. It was, we had 1 or 2 guys tearing down side-by-sides. And today it's 3/4 of the workers here are tearing down side-by-sides. And so it's a lot more parts going through, a lot nicer stuff. In the beginning, it was a lot of older machines. Now we're up to where it's, machines are coming in of AC and full machines of cabs and everything else. So it's a lot different today.
The engine department has really only been around for about 10 to 12. In the infancy, it was 1 engine builder. Now we have a staff of 15 employees. They are rebuilding about 45 engines and transmissions each week. They are taking cores down from salvage, bringing them in, fully disassembling them, cleaning them, rebuilding them with parts from our machine shop and our warehouse to produce 45 engines each week. Once they are built, they go down to testing. Once they are tested, then they go out to shipping and go out to our customers.
When we first started, it was kind of like, weren't sure how far it was going to go, so it was kind of, we're not going to dump thousands of dollars into some machine that we might use one time. As far as now, we're using them regularly, so it's, planing heads and stuff like that. We've came very far in that process, boring our own cylinders, stuff like that, before we'd send that off. But then it got to the point to where that wasn't very costly. It was worth more to buy a machine and do it ourselves, which, again, expanded the company.
In this machine shop, we have a lot of capabilities. We're able to bore cylinders, rebuild heads, grind cranks, repair engine cases, and this is the backbone of our engine department. By having it here on site, we're able to control a lot of the quality, and we're also able to improve our production on the engine department. Behind me, you'll see an engine head machine, and one year, Diane wanted a new car, but instead, she gave up her car to purchase this machine, and in the end, it ended up paying off way better for her than a car and helped our engine department.
One of my favorite things was to make breakfast for the guys, and it started off, I think, with just 8. And then we morphed into like 40. And I really loved doing that every Tuesday. And then one day, Todd came to me and said, we need the kitchen for the engine parts. And I'm like, if you do that, I'm probably not going to get a kitchen back again for a while. And sure enough, I think it's been, 3 or 4 years, and we haven't had a kitchen. And the poor guys here at PSN and girls haven't had a Tuesday morning breakfast for a long time.
Back in the early days, this was our playground. We would come out here, ride our four-wheelers, throw mud. We'd really just come out here to play and enjoy the power sports that we were in.
We all had a sport quad. We all went back on lunch and rode and ripped around. That all had to change as we grew, just for liability reasons. Getting to the point where we have to have company-wide safety meetings once a month and things like that.
But over time, as the business grew, this became a place where we had to store frames. And now we've grown over 3,000 frames here on property, and it continues to grow and continues to incorporate more of our property into it. On property, we have over 130,000 parts. Over the years, our inventory has grown and our warehouse has grown. We used to store things in 55-gallon drums, but now it is involved into this monstrosity, and it's all OSHA approved. We love OSHA. Each week, they are pulling out about 2,000 to 2,500 parts out of all of our warehouses, and each week they're putting back in about 3,000. This is not our only warehouse. We have about 5 locations on property. We even have 16 shipping containers that we use to store parts because we couldn't build buildings fast enough.
I never realized it would ever grow like this. It's unbelievable. Todd got into a business that helps customers be also picking up stuff that nobody else wanted and turning it into a product that people want, so it's pretty cool. I think Todd probably didn't even think it would ever grow this big, but it's quite a business. And I'm proud to help be a part of that.
We used to grab old used boxes and recycle them. Now we use a triple wall custom box. We have our own custom foam machines that allow us to create molds around the engines. So when the customer receives it, they can remove the half, put their core back in it, and then it will come back to us and receive it safely and soundly. Each week they bring in about 2,500 packages and ship them out. At PowerSportsNation, we are a firm believer of shipping out every single order, every single day.
When I started here in 17, a big day, like, oh my goodness, this is gonna be a doozy day, was about 600 orders. Today, come Monday, if it's at 600, that is a super small day. We have just absolutely grown in all the ways. It's crazy. It's crazy to see how much we've really grown in the last, 7-8 years.
First it started with plain boxes, and then when we were able to logo our own boxes, that was just like, holy cow. And to see pallet loads of boxes unloaded was it was a sweet moment, but it's like, holy cow, we're going somewhere. And that was pretty fun and kind of scary.
I guess you never really think it could ever get so big, just from where we were and where we started, from a garage and then renting shops, and now we own a shop, and then just watching all the employees that we get to have come through and get to know them. And it's just mind-blowing. I have no other words to describe this place other than wow. So
I always made sure my kids had bikes. They may not have been the best bikes, but to them they were pretty cool. And my happiest point now is honestly getting to ride or race with my boys.
Growing up with dirt bikes was pretty fun. I mean, even going to four-wheelers, and it was just an experience, just blessed to even be able to ride. And a terrible thing that my father got me into.
Whenever it was Halloween or whenever it was the week at school, you always dressed up. Whatever, those weeks or whatever, we would always wear our gear. It became our identity. It grew the passion, the love for it, and there's so many memories and fun times. And we used to ride at this track over by Hoskins. My dad would say, get everyone together. There'd be 10, 15 of us. And he would always send the kids out first. The kids would always go first, and he says, all right, we're gonna give you guys a head start, and we're gonna try to catch you.
I was on a KTM 52 stroke, and it was a race, and I had a head start against my brothers, and my brothers always had bigger dirt bikes. The prize to win was a 2-liter bottle of soda.
When you're 10 years old, getting your own 2-liter Mountain Dew, shit was wild.
I think Honda had a marketing campaign say, you meet the nicest people on a Honda. I've met the nicest people generally through racing or riding. I remember going to a drive-in movie in Neely with my kids. And my oldest son, Ian, is the best person I know to meet anybody in the world. And there was this couple that had I think it was an FMF sticker for FMF dirt bike pipes back in the day. And Ian sparks up a conversation. We actually became friends with them, still in friendship with one of them today. And it's because my son was willing to talk to him. And PowerSports lets you do that.
Kind of realize that how much friends and family can really get together. And you kind of share the same hobby, passion, and you guys will tear off for a weekend and go ride somewhere, and you camp out. You're up in Colorado, which is one of my favorite places to ride. And you just travel, and it kind of creates a better bond than just, sitting around a dinner table. Because you put blood, sweat, and tears into it.
I now have a 2.5-year-old son and another son on the way. And he loves everything with a motor. And seeing his passion now for those things, anytime he goes over to Grandpa and Grandma's or he walks into my shop, he's like, I want to ride, I want to ride, I want to ride. I want to ride with him. I want to create these memories. I want to go to Colorado with him like I did with my parents, with my aunt, my uncles. I want to create those memories. And in today's world, it's pretty easy to sit down and just scroll on your phone and become consumed by it. Well, that's not the real world. The real world is riding on the trail, getting a blown tire, having to figure out how to put it back together to limp it back to the trail.
At the end of the day, these machines are expensive and they're tools. It's what helps ranchers, it's what helps farmers, it's how families get together and hang out. If we can offer a cheaper way to do that, why wouldn't you try and help other people out? And as long as we can put food on the table, I say we're doing pretty good.
This has just reignited my love for this company and what we do and the passion we have behind it, and hearing the stories and hearing all the things, I'm learning more than anything. It's just creating this burning desire to just take this thing to the next level.
He really has carved out a niche where, there's no one else that is really doing the same thing at the level that we're doing it.
It's not just one person. It takes an entire team, and it takes having the right people by your side, and it's given me a lot of hope for the future. And the future is unknown. As long as we are all in it together, we can do amazing things.
If PowerSportsNation gets bigger, awesome. But if it doesn't get any bigger, I'm okay. I just want to tell our story.
Your whole life is a walk of faith, and you just don't really know what's going to happen. And so every day you just entrust those things to God. But look where it ended up.